Dear colleagues, dear friends, good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome you at our Modern Arbitration Live project that is supported by Russian Arbitration Center and LF Academy project. Within this project, we talk to the leading Russian and foreign practitioners, lawyers, about the most interesting practical issues in the sphere of dispute resolution. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Jеймс Менц. James until recently was Deputy Secretary General and Head of Case Management at the German Institute of Arbitration, or DIS, in Cologne and Berlin in Germany. Welcome, James. Thank you very much for coming. So today we would like to talk more about arbitration in Germany, about institutional arbitration in Germany, because in 2015 Gary Born issued his famous list of Born's finest, most popular and most successful arbitration institutions. The list consists of 19 names, and DIS is among these names, which is, I think, very good for the institution. But still, DIS is not so famous outside of Germany. We know in Russia, for example, something about arbitration in Germany, but I think that not many users are familiar with DIS as an institution, not as many as it could be. We know much about Asian venues for arbitration in Hong Kong and Singapore. We know some older European institutions, and I'm sure that it will be very interesting for our colleagues to know more about arbitration in Germany. So in order to start, please first share with us what makes DIS different from other arbitration institutions, including famous European institutions. So what are the main features of DIS?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you to the LFA and to the Russian Arbitration Center. Andrei, I'm very happy to be here and talk to you and to talk a little bit more about the DIS, because as you say, it has a name, but it's really been perceived as quite domestic and hasn't, I think, shown its qualities as much as it should have in the past, and we are trying to change that. And it's a great opportunity to talk to your audience about what we've done recently to really bring the DIS into the modern age with our new rules. The DIS is Germany's leading arbitration institution. The roots actually go back to the 1920s, when it was a predecessor organization was formed by German businesses. We have offices in Berlin and Cologne. We have about 1,500 members, and one of the largest, if not the largest, below 40 organization worldwide. We administer approximately 200 cases currently, and there are some 160 to 170 new cases annually. We offer one of the broadest ranges of dispute resolution rules of any peer, ranging all the way from conciliation to adjudication to sports arbitration. About 35% of our cases are international, involving at least one foreign party, and that's something we want to grow both in absolute terms and in relative terms. What makes the DIS unique? Well, we'd like to think that we combine the advantages, the efficiency of a smaller institution with the know-how and the outlook of a global player, not least because of the people who are working at the DIS. We are very affordable. We have very low fees, arbitrator fees and administrative fees. We have a fast rate to get to the awards, between 12 to 15 months on average. We have high quality arbitrators. We are a neutral and independent organization. We're not attached to any chamber of commerce like many of our competitors, for example.
Okay, so that was one of my questions, because you mentioned members of the organization. So DIS is itself organizational, is an entity?
We are an association or a Verein, and so we have members, and we are governed by our statutes. We, in terms of our income, it's made up of the administrative fees that we collect, as well as of membership fees and events.
Okay. You mentioned also people, so for sure in institutional arbitration it's very important to have professional staff. So can you please tell more about people behind the scenes who are doing actually administrative work? You mentioned that you have 2 offices, as I understand, in Berlin and Köln. So how people are distributed between these offices, whether you can have proceedings in both offices or maybe some other venues also. Do these people speak English, like for example you, fluently? Maybe you have also some Russian speakers or some other representatives of other countries?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the Secretariat, which is your first point of contact when you have a new case. We have 15 employees distributed across Cologne and Berlin. 11 of them are in Cologne and 4 are in Berlin. So Berlin is growing, we're expanding that. We can administer arbitration seated anywhere in the world, like most other of our competitors. Most of them, though, are seated in Germany still. And we have really a United Nations makeup of staff. I'm kind of happy to say it's quite unique. I think we have an Italian, we have a United States national, we have a Polish colleague, we have a Russian colleague who obviously speaks Russian, was trained in Russia. We have a Finnish colleague, we have a South Korean national on our staff. So for a German-based institution, we're really quite international. Then when it comes to the governance, the DIS has an executive board and an advisory board, and there you really have the who's who of German arbitration. You have most of the leading law firm partners on there. You have university professors, you have the German Chamber of Commerce, companies like Siemens, you also have the Ministry of Justice. You really have the stakeholders in German arbitration represented on our boards. And finally, we have a new body now as part of our rule change. It's called the Arbitration Council, and that's what you kind of are familiar with from other competitors, having a body that overlooks the case administration. And that council consists of 15 of the leading arbitration practitioners worldwide. We have 9 Germans and 6 non-Germans, and one of them is a Russian. We have Professor Anton Asoskov, who is on the council, and we very much look forward to developing our relationship with this body.
Oh, that's great. I think it's very interesting for Russian users, because it's good that you have a very reputable professor from Russia in this council, that you have a Russian qualified and trained staff member. What about appointments? Because recently, within our interview, we talked to a member of the board of Russian Arbitration Center, where we have appointments being made by the board, Anna Grushenkova, and we talked to her about the appointing and choosing of arbitrators. So it's how it is done, about how the parties shall choose arbitrator and all these issues. So what about appointments in DIS? Who deals with this issue?
Yeah, well, I should have mentioned that. Thank you for raising it. It's a separate body that is entirely separate from the board, entirely separate from the Secretariat and from the Arbitration Council. There are also very strict integrity rules that we can talk about later. This committee has 3 main members and 3 alternate members that step in when the main members are conflicted or unavailable. The 3 main members are Böckstiegel, Professor Böckstiegel, who I think I don't need to introduce, Vera van Houte, who is in Belgium or Belgian national, and she's quite well known from her work at the ICC. She's now an independent arbitrator, and Nadia Daverse, who is with Clyde and Co. now in Paris, also has extensive institutional experience. So it's interesting about that is that you actually only have 1 German right now on the committee. Nadia, I think, has the nationality but is not based there. And so I think that also reflects our growing international outlook. In terms of the appointment process, that's something we can talk about. The DIS allows the parties complete freedom. We don't have a closed list, for example. We generally don't have to make substitute appointments. That's tends to be the case in 20 to 30% of cases. Last year we actually had to do quite a few, but the year before not as many. So it tends to work out that the parties themselves or the co-arbitrators appoint.
So the substitute appointments, you mean appointments that are made instead of the party? If the party doesn't choose, appoint the arbitrator.
Exactly, yes, Andrei. And I mean, that's the 2 situations that you'll be familiar with, which is when the respondent does not appoint, or the parties can't agree on a sole or a chairperson. Yeah.
So for this, you have this new body, this appointing committee that deals with it. Yes.
That's right. That's not a new. That's been there before, but that's right. That's the appointing committee that deals with that. The secretariat makes proposals in those situations.